So for those of you who don't know me, I used to be the one sitting down here at children's time. Growing up in the church, my name's Adam, and they asked me to speak last year for the first time, and so I kind of came up with something. And I'm not sure, could you raise your hand if you were here for that last year? So wow, we got a good turnout here. So if you weren't, the sermon happens to be on YouTube, so you didn't miss out. Okay? But I just thought it'd be appropriate to do a check-in. So what we did was we had an activity to learn about growing and how you grow things and how does that relate to how we grow our faith. So I just thought I'd bring this as a reminder of last year's sermon. But if you really did plant the seed and your plant grew, I'd love for you to come and tell me about that afterwards. Anyways, what do you do with stuff like this? But I've never really been trained, like I haven't gone to seminary, and people ask me like, hey, are you thinking of going into ministry? And I say, hey, I'm in ministry every day, and I feel like God's called us all to be in ministry. But, I'm just a lover of Jesus, and just the way that he is such an example to us about how we can be living and loving in the world. So as I was preparing, of course I get the advice, the family and friends advice, and it's always the same, the undying words of my grandfather is, talk about God and talk about 10 minutes. But to be honest, I think I'm excited right now. I think my parents are probably more nervous than I am. But, for me, faith it always comes back to the greatest commandment. That's the thing where God said, I said a lot of stuff, but if you're only going to get one thing, this is what I want you to get. And so that's part of the scripture. I'm going to read it for you, the greatest commandments. A guy comes up to Christ and he says, of all the commandments, which one is important? And he's trying to be sneaky, ask a tough question. And Christ says this, he says, love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul and all your mind and with all your strength. And the second is this, love your neighbor as yourself. There is no other commandment greater than these. Well said, teacher. You're right in saying that God is one and there is no other but him. But to love him with all your heart, with all your understanding, with all your strength, and to love your neighbor as yourself is more important than burnt offerings and sacrifices. And then in Matthew, so that's from Mark, but in Matthew it said again, and I love what it says in Matthew, it says, all the law and prophets hang on this one thing. So here's me, and as I'm growing in my faith, I'm like, I got a scheme here, If I can figure out how to do this one thing, I can cover it all. And all the rest of this is like details that I can look into to give me more information about how you actually do this. So anyway, I've spent a lot of my faith journey figuring out, okay, God's called us to love him and to love those around us. But it sounds simple, but I feel like you could spend a lifetime trying to figure that out. And I think a popular phrase that has come up and kind of people have grabbed onto this as Christians is that phrase, WWJD, right? What would Jesus do? And so you're in a certain situation and you're not quite sure how you should act, and then you think, okay, I'm a Christian, I'm supposed to be like Christ. So you say, what would Jesus do? And then you do that, right? And so Jesus did a lot of amazing things. We all know that from reading the scripture. He's feeding people, healing people. He did tons of crazy stuff. And so I thought, okay, I just gotta do what Jesus does, right? So love God and love people. Okay, so I'm gonna pray, and I'm gonna, say words of affirmation to people. I'm gonna open the door for people, and I'm gonna feed people. Or if I see like a homeless guy, I might give him some money, because that's what we're called to do, right? We're called to love people. And so for me, it was always about the doing, right? And I think part of it did come from this, what would Jesus do? But what I've realized is that a lot of the time during my daily life, during the week, I'll come to a point and I'm just like, not feeling very nice inside. That's the best way I can put it in church, And so anyway, I'm just all bound up, I'm stressed, and I'm just, And I still have that in the back of my mind, like, well, I gotta be nice. the job of giving the sermon is you have to go to the Rise and Shine Bible study. And you guys, it's 7 a.m. on a Tuesday, okay? I cannot remember the last time I woke up at 7 a.m. And so they asked me to come because what we do is we go over the scripture for the sermon and talk about it. And it was definitely helpful for me. But Kathy asked me if I would come, and I said, there's only one reason that I'm going to wake up at 7 a.m., and his name is Jesus. I'll see you there.